Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Well, today's going to be one of those news and notesy kind of days. It's actually been a lot that's going on with the trade deadline coming up and whatnot. A lot of teams making moves. And I just kind of want to get caught up and stuff. Plus, really nothing from the Green Bay Packers. Didn't have any press conferences or anything interesting, seemingly anyway. I just checked. It's almost 7 o'clock at night, so can't imagine they're doing it now. So we might as well get caught up, and then if we have some time, we'll make fun of some people because it's funny, and people deserve it. That's just how that goes. I do want to start with the absolute worst news of the day. One of those some things are bigger than football type of situations. One of the worst things you could probably ever hear as far as a news story. 49ers cornerback Charvarius Ward announced that his 1-year-old daughter has passed away. There are not a lot of details. We don't really need a lot of details, I suppose. Just the worst ever thing. Just frickin' ever. So obviously, as much as I can't stand the 49ers, absolutely heartbroken for Charvarius Ward and his family. I don't know where you go from there for him. I don't know what that means for I don't know. But terrible situation, and I don't even know what to say beyond that, honestly, as far as just I hope that I don't know. I've been marinating on this for a while. One of those had to collect myself kind of moments when I first heard about it, but still, after that time, I don't know what you can say about that. But every time I want to say something like "wish them the best" or whatever, it's like, don't say that. That's the dumbest thing you could ever say. So I don't know. I guess I will just leave it at that. If you pray, I would just ask you keep them in your prayers. That's all I got. It's also always very hard to transition off of things like that, so I figured I'd grab this article here. Let's just throw whatever at the wall just to kind of change the subject as humanely as is possible, I guess. CBSSports.com, John Breach. These are Jets invent new ways to lose by ending 750-game winning streak by NFL teams, plus more wild stats from Week 8. Just a collection of pretty wild stats. So why not? That sounds fun, right? I kind of alluded to this at some point. Actually, it was a different statistic I think I pointed to, but here's this one from Dan Orlovsky. Scored 20-plus points, didn't turn it over, and allowed fewer than 250 yards. In NFL history, teams are 750-1, including playoffs, when generating that box score. The only loss is the Jets yesterday. Now, you could easily look at that and say, well, that's the freaking kicker or whatever. I don't know, man. It's just a very weird sort of thing. I think the hardest part about, because you look at it and go like, well, why would that be so, 750-0 before this day? I suppose if you allow less than 250 yards, it's hard to score unless there are turnovers. If you give them the ball on the 10-yard line, they could punch it in after doing almost nothing. Now, you could still have some good kick returns or whatever the case may be, but I think that is what would make it so unusual for a team that does not get any turnovers and only gets 250 yards to get more than 20 points. You know what I mean? But good on the Jets. We're going to get to, by the way, there's several things here, and there's also another thing we're going to do after this, which is similar, just a bunch of different stats, but it's more just laughing at people. But it's an intro into some of the topics I want to talk about, which is making fun of stupid teams. Jaden Daniels, Commanders rookie, completed a 52-yard Hail Mary to beat the Bears, which was the longest game-winning Hail Mary. Why are you doing that? Some of these sites, they jump all over the place with their stupid ads. It drives me nuts. Like, I'm reading that. It's like, well, I got to get my ad in here 45 seconds after you open the page. It's doing it again. It's just scrolling on its own. I hate these things so much. Let me try to get through this. Longest game-winning Hail Mary in regulation since Aaron Rodgers threw his 61-yarder to beat the Lions in 2014. Daniels also became the second rookie since the AFL-NFL merger in 1970 to throw a Hail Mary of at least 50 yards to win a game, joining Tim Couch, who did it for the Browns in 1999. Again, there are so many things, and I covered a lot of it in Packernet After Dark. I kind of want to do it again today because there's more. There's just more and more. Just on the one series, there are so many failures. It's unbelievable. Here's another thing. Here's another thing. I want to kind of go through some of that again. But again, one of the best parts about that is that not only did the Bears lose in the battle of the rookie quarterbacks, but they lost in the most just awful way, where the number 2 pick that they decided not to even talk to not only beat them, not only played better than their quarterback, but threw basically a record-breaking Hail Mary of 51 yards to beat your team with like 19 seconds to work with. Incredible. The Chargers led the Saints 9-5 at halftime, which we're only noting because that's only the second time in NFL history that's ever happened. The only other time it was in 1975 when the Rams led the Packers 9-5 in a game that LA would end up winning. Well, we don't need to worry about that nonsense. I got some bad news about the Lions. Lions scored 52 points on Sunday, which is the team's highest total in any game since 1997 when they scored 55 against the Bears. The Lions are now averaging 38.4 points per game over the past 5 games, which is their highest average over a 5-game span in any season since 1952. So that's not great. With the next one, also the Lions, the wild thing about Detroit's scoring output is that the Lions put up 52 points, even thought, guessing that's supposed to be though, should probably get an editor, CBS, even though they only totaled 61 passing yards. That makes them the first team since 1955 Bears to put up more than 50 points in a game where they totaled fewer than 100 passing yards. Is that real? I had to pause when I read that because I'm like, I think I'm reading this wrong. The Lions also had the largest margin of victory in NFL history for a team that was outgained by at least 150 yards. How is that possible? I do know that they ran a ton. I didn't realize the passing was that appalling. It's like the 49ers game against the Packers back in the day where they ran for like 400 freaking yards against. God, that was just the worst. That was the most painful game I've ever seen, man. There were gaps for running backs to run through that a child could have got 15 yards on. It was just appalling. Skip a few, but this one's kind of interesting. There were 2 teams that won on Sunday, Browns and Patriots, despite being an underdog of at least 7 points. With those 2 wins, underdogs of a touchdown or more are now 9-8 on the season, which is by far the best record through 8 weeks. Before this year, the best record by big underdogs came in 1990 when they went 8-16 through 8 weeks. That seems impossible. 7-point or worse underdogs have a winning record right now. Jeez. The NFL's 3 Florida teams went to combined 0-3 on Sunday. They lost their games by a total of 9 points. It marks the first time ever that they've all lost on the same day, with those losses coming by a combined margin of fewer than 10 points. Okay, there you go. With Carolina's loss to the Broncos on Sunday, Bryce Young is now 0-10 on the road in his career. Ugh, that is the second worst road record for any quarterback since 1950. The only quarterback with a worse road record was Cincinnati's Dave Klinger, who went 0-13. Well, there's time. Anthony Richardson, who we're going to talk about very soon, has had a historically bad first half. The Colts quarterback went 2 of 15 in the first half against the Texans, which gave him the lowest completion percentage, 13.3%, by any quarterback in a first half since 1991. Eagles' rough start continues with 0 points in the first quarter against the Bengals. The Eagles still haven't scored a single first quarter point this season. Holy cow. That makes them the first team since 91 Packers to score 0 first quarter points through the first 7 games. I don't know why we keep getting picked on. Just getting like the secondhand slap in the mouth. Dude, that sucks, right? Yeah, last time was the Packers. Why don't you shut up, stupid? Nobody asked you last time. Don't worry, just say the year, okay? You don't need to get all specific. I am happy the Eagles are bad because I talk so much about the Eagles and just not trusting the Eagles, and the Eagles are going to be bad, blah, 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 and then they kick us in the teeth. It's like, oh, crap. And then it looked like they were going to be good, and I haven't really looked much, but I'm hearing a lot of like, well, they're a disaster. And then another fun little phenomenon that, again, I really only like because Caleb Williams exists, but also I kind of like this guy. Bo Nix has a breakout game. Broncos rookie threw for 284 yards and 3 touchdowns, while also tacking on a rushing touchdown. With those stats, Nix became just the 4th rookie quarterback since 2000 to have at least 3 touchdown passes with 1 rushing touchdown and a passer rating of 120 or higher. Nix joins Cam Newton in 2011, Deshaun Watson in 2017, and Justin Herbert in 2021. Bo Nix for Rookie of the Year. I'm just saying, man. I would be happy about that. Who else did I like? I like Bo Nix and I don't know, somebody. Was it Penix? I don't think so. I don't think I like Penix. I already forgot everybody. Oh, it was the guy we drafted. That was great, and then we cut him because we suck at everything. All right, that is all of that. Now I want to get to the next fun little article here. I just titled it Losers, even though that's not technically the title of the article. Week 8 NFL losers. Mike McDaniel out of excuses. Bears coaching drops the ball. Again, a little bit of an intro, but also just making fun of other people. This one I like because, again, I'm the only person on planet Earth that does not like Mike McDaniel. I don't know why everybody gushes over the guy because he walks around like he's stoned and doesn't care about stuff, and I have no idea what the appeal of that is. Mike McDaniel gets a lot of headlines and love for his personality and great play design, but it is hard to keep ignoring the consistent mediocrity that comes out of the Dolphins under his watch. He had an excuse for the past couple of weeks due to the quarterback situation, but with Tua back on Sunday and playing a home game against a 3-4 Arizona Cardinals team that traveled the entire way across the country, an early kickoff, his team still came up short in a 28-27 loss. They are 2-5 and quickly running out of time in the AFC playoff race. I already said I don't like Miami, and I don't exactly. I did like a whole thing on that. I was like, I hate Miami. I forgot why. I knew Mike McDaniel. There was other stuff, too. I think it was the cheating thing. I don't know. Who knows? Who cares? Oh, Tyreek's a douchebag. Yeah, I don't like Miami. And why is... has anybody asked the question, why is Tua back? I know we just brush off all kinds of stuff. Deshaun Watson's playing. It's like, freaking whatever. Then he gets hurt, and the weirdest freaking goofball in the world takes over, starts giving his philosophical lessons on how big of an idiot he is. And we also brush off the fact that he's got quite a checkered past. So brushing stuff off is what we do as football fans. We have to, because everything's a disaster, and we want to make excuses to keep watching. So, but anyways, are we just not going to talk about the fact that Tua should not be playing football like at all? I mean, I'm really scared of what's going to happen one of these times when he takes a shot to the head. And I don't want to overly speculate, but good Lord. Not only did I assume he would never play football again, the odds of him coming back this year, in my mind, were 0. The odds of him coming back kind of quick this year, what are we doing? Again, this is where the whole player safety thing to me is stupid. They take player safety way too far on way too many things. Taunting. That's not nice. Oh, shut up. But you got a guy that's like taken, 4 shots to the head that have caused his body to curl up because it's severe brain damage. And we're just going to let him be like, nah, I think I'm fine. Be all right. I mean, I'm all for letting people make their own decisions, but when it's my company, I'm sorry, at some point, nah, dude, no. I'm not going to let you come out here and die on national television because you're just feeling like, nah, I'm fine. You know what? You got paid. Sorry, Miami. Suck it up. He's not coming back. Fast forward 30 years, that guy is going to be in terrible shape, and we're all going to be sitting here going, I can't believe they just let him keep playing. I don't know. I don't understand that. Continuing, the New York Jets front office. This is not just about losing to a bad New England Patriots team. By the way, this is Yard Barker. Adam Gretz is the writer. It's not just about losing to the Patriots. This is about the entire process that has allowed them to reach this point, hitching their wagon to a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers and pretty much allowing him to run the organization, to bring his friends and dictate what the team does has not worked. They are 2-6 and in last place in the AFC East. Devontae Adams forced to trade out of Las Vegas and may have ended up on a worse team. I don't want to throw mud at people that are now on the same team as me, but boy, oh boy, would I love to know what guys like this were saying when the Jets made the trade about how everybody, oh, it's brilliant. The Jets, it saved them. We're not even going to acknowledge the fact that they threw their entire future away for like a short-term thing. But again, it's the Jets. They've never won a freaking thing. In my lifetime, they've never done jack squat. Why not? Take a swing, go do something. Fine. But boy, oh boy, was it just the most stupid thing in the world to be a Packer fan and say, I don't know if the Jets are going to pan out. I don't know. I got some problems over there. That offensive line's kind of atrocious. Rodgers with the whole hand signal thing and the way he does things. I mean, it might be a problem. Could be a problem. I don't know. But, they got defense, I guess. Maybe they could do something. How dare you? Everybody knows that they're automatically Super Bowl contenders. Literally everybody. They're immediately Super Bowl contenders. Anyways, then we got Anthony Richardson. Talked about him a little bit already. Just a really tough game for Richardson. He did throw a 69-yard touchdown pass in the first quarter, but there's nothing else positive to come out of the game. He finished the day competing 10 of 32 passes, threw an interception, and briefly took himself out of the game because of, in his words, he was tired. That's not usually the thing you see from a quarterback. All of that is a tough look. Chicago Bears coaching staff. The Chicago Bears staff put a clinic of coaching malpractice in the fourth quarter, their 18-15 loss to the Washington Commanders. First, there was a handoff to backup offensive linemen on the 3rd and goal with the game on the line that resulted in a fumble. Then, there was the way they allowed Washington to gain free 15 yards on the next to last play of the game, allowing the Commanders to even get into Hail Mary range for Jaden Daniels. Just a terrible job in the biggest moments for a team that had fought back to put itself in a position to potentially win. There are others in this article, but those are the ones I care about. All right, well, as expected, things are taking a lot longer than I expected. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We got some more big news to go through, trades to talk about, et cetera, et cetera. We'll be right back. All right, so things continue to get worse for the Houston Texans. Kind of an unfortunate situation. I mean, this just feels like the Texans. Remember when they had Deshaun and everything was great, but for some reason they just couldn't quite get it? It just, something wasn't working. Weren't winning enough games to get to the playoffs, but it's like, Then they get C.J. Stroud, and you're like, man, if he's this good as a rookie, it's going to be crazy. And then they get Stephon Diggs, and it's like, oh, man. But they're just not winning the games that you feel like they should be winning. And then Stephon Diggs has a season-ending injury. Big loss. Texans wide receiver Stephon Diggs suffered a season-ending knee injury Sunday versus the Colts via Adam Schefter. By the way, that was the opposite side of that Colts game. So remember, historically bad performance from the Colts quarterback. The Texans won by 3. So, not that Stephon Diggs was the be-all, end-all. They've got some talented receivers on there. He wasn't even their number one, believe it or not, but still, not the direction you want to be heading. Then there was a flurry of news here. I'll just go through Ian Rappaport's tweets. So that was at about, 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We heard about Stephon Diggs being out for the season. Then, within, minutes of that, we get this. Quarterback change. The Colts are planning to start Joe Flacco this Sunday night against the Vikings, sources say. A major move as the former first-rounder Anthony Richardson heads to the bench. Now, this is the second time already that we have a young first-round pick and the team is giving up on them. Maybe not entirely, but for now, from Bryce Young and now Anthony Richardson. By the way, I think you could argue both of them are great examples of quarterbacks that really need time. Maybe not Bryce as much. I don't really know his MO. But when it comes to Anthony Richardson, you're looking at a guy that is just tools, and that's literally it. Like this is, if we can even make him into a quarterback, then he could be great. But right now, dude's not a quarterback. I think everybody would benefit from sitting. This guy especially. It's just NFL team malpractice. I think the Packers should just make it a habit of, rather than continually drafting quarterbacks, let other teams draft quarterbacks. And then when they throw them out there, especially these really toolsy, elite athlete type of guys, when teams throw them out too early and then they bust out and everyone makes fun of them and they get thrown on the bench and then eventually kicked off the team, you pick them up for nothing and then let them sit and learn in a quarterback-friendly system behind really talented quarterbacks from really talented quarterback coaches and then develop into good football players and then just flip those guys. But Flacco will be taking over for the Colts. Then, within an hour of that, we get this. The Ravens are trading for Panthers wide receiver Deontay Johnson, sources tell me and Mike Garafolo, as Baltimore loads up. So as expected, you've got teams like Carolina that are getting rid of pieces, which I still don't fully understand. I understand that if this is not your year, then you need to gear up for your future. But if there are guys on your team that are relatively young, you don't need to move them. I mean, he's 28, so maybe you're looking at 3 more years with the guy. If you really think you're down in the dumps and it's going to be, why not? Depending on the compensation, I could understand it. If you had a 28-year-old, like for example, let's say Max Crosby was on your team and he was 28, 29 years old, and you were the Carolina Panthers. I could see doing that because you can flip Max Crosby for more than a first-round pick, probably, at 28. I don't know how old Max Crosby is, but let's say a 28-year-old Max Crosby. You probably get at least a first-round pick for that. So we get very high value from a guy that is unhappy and probably is not going to contribute at a time when we're really going to be making a push for playoffs, Super Bowl, whatever. This is a Baltimore 5th for a Carolina 6th. I don't know, man. It's just, I feel like Carolina's just giving up too much. Like they're just giving everybody away because I don't really understand the strategy, I guess. Then, within minutes of that, we hear about the Charvarius Ward news. Then, probably the biggest news, and this is very, very big, the Minnesota Vikings are adding a new left tackle, completing a trade with the Jaguars to acquire left tackle Cam Robinson in exchange for draft pick compensation per me and Tom Pelissero. That compensation is the Vikings get Cam Robinson and a conditional 2026 7th, which can go away based on play time, and the Jaguars get a conditional 2026 5th that can become a 4th based on play time. So let's assume everything goes well. They essentially gave him up for a 2 years from now 5th, which based on NFL math that I do not agree with, but the way NFL teams think about this, you kind of go back around when you go back a year. So it's like giving up a 6th round pick. Or no, it would be a 5th round pick because it's a 4th. That would, whatever. Now, it's relatively big because the Minnesota Vikings, as much as it's a really weird situation because you felt like this was kind of a, not even necessarily a rebuilding year, I guess. I mean, it's part of their rebuild process. Didn't really think about it as a serious year. They go on a run, they win a bunch of games, and then they start to go on a 2-game slide, and in addition to that, they lose their really talented left tackle. And so the Vikings look at it and clearly are not willing to throw in the towel on the season and say, nah, screw that, we're gonna make a move here. Now, personally, I think it's a good trade. I understand he's 29 years old. But I mean, he's not as good as the left tackle they had. But I mean, he is a classic like Packers guy. We talked about him recently because we played the Jaguars, but 72 pass blocking, 65 run blocking, that type of a guy. And even that, he had 2 terrible games that are dragging down his grade. Pretty much every week is about an 80 pass blocking. He's a good pass blocker. But again, at the same time, he's 29 years old. He is a downgrade. You're giving up compensation for him, and he's hurt. I honestly don't know what happened. It was my understanding he was ready to play, and I'm looking at his grades right now. He did not play against the Packers. I don't think I knew that. I was under the impression he was a full go. I think I reported that on the podcast because I read it, that it was a real thing. And I'm looking, I'm like, why doesn't he have a grade for... So I go back and look at the game, and their left tackle was Walker Little, who got the crap beat out of him by the Packers. So we actually did not see him. Maybe I'm just confused and I'm misremembering how that all went down. I thought... In fact, I'm 100% positive. They specifically said he no longer has a designation and is full go for the game. So there must have been a game time thing that occurred. I feel like I'm in the frickin' Twilight Zone right now. But anyways, look, it's going to keep the Vikings going. And it's not even if you didn't think it was the greatest thing or it was, you could play the hand of like, well, it's really stupid because you're headed in the wrong direction. You're not going to be ready to go until maybe next year. And then you got a quarterback controversy. Even if you wanted to play that game, they gave up close to nothing. Like, you stupid idiots. You gave this and you're going to lose a 5th round pick in 2 years. So freaking suck it, you idiots. I don't know. I don't know. I can't help but say that it is mostly a positive move for the Vikings. Certainly unfortunate for the Packers, because it would be much better to not face him when we see the Vikings again, assuming he even plays in that game. I don't know. Who knows? But since we're on the topic, trade deadline is winding down. Deadline is 4 p.m. Eastern Time, Tuesday, November 5th. So we're really closing in. Got about a week left for that. So the remaining question is, who is out there? Obviously, nobody 100% knows, but there is people have put together some lists. I'm not going to go through it exhaustively because we've already kind of done this. But this is via CBS of the positions that we care about. It's mostly wide receivers. I don't know why it's always a huge just list of wide receivers all the time. But the other thing that gives me confidence is a lot. You go through this list and it's a lot of guys that got traded. So like Cam Robinson is on this list. So it's not a completely stupid list. But if we look at edge, first of all, hilariously, Zadarius Smith is on the list. That's not going to happen, but I found that funny. Then you've got Jadeveon Clowney, Panthers. So it does make sense. Look, Jadeveon has never lived up to his hype, but it's worth considering. He's been a guy. And interestingly enough, as much as, we say he didn't really live up to this, that, or the other, he's been actually quite good, and that's all the way up to 2023. This year he's off to a bad start, but he's in freaking Carolina. Last year was, according to his PFF grade, his second best year of his career. It was his highest pass rush grade ever. He had 78 pressures on 545 attempts and 11 sacks, 83 PFF grade with the Baltimore Ravens. He was playing as an outside linebacker. He's done both. I do think, if I remember correctly, he's kind of fits better in that. But, again, he's done both. In fact, just the year before that, he was a defensive end for Cleveland. He had a 76 grade. Again, not as good, and he'd had just 29 pressures on 305 attempts. So, you go from a really good pass rush year, and then the year before, we're talking sub 10%. But a lot of what he does also is he's a really good run defender. The pass rush has been kind of up and down. He's been, even this year where he's struggling massively, he's got a 72 run defense grade. He's just never not been very good at that. And he's creeping up on 32 years old. He's having a down year. I would assume he would come quite cheap if Carolina even has enough bodies to field a team at this point after everybody they've given away. Maybe that's an option. The other one is Azeez Ojulari for the Giants. I've seen this multiple times. In fact, the Giants apparently have put a price on him. That seems to be the case. It's him and somebody else. I can't quite remember who, but there's two guys, and apparently they've put a high price tag on it. We'll get to that in just a second if I can find the article. But I'm not interested in Ojulari. Number one, he is a young guy. He's a second-round pick, great, out of Georgia. So who knows? Maybe Gutekunst is gushing over the guy. But the bottom line is he's an outside linebacker. He is 6'3", 240 pounds. He is not built to be a down defensive end. And number two, he's been god-awful his entire career. So whatever they're asking is stupid because nobody should pay it. I think if I had to guess, they probably have a high price tag because his stats are actually not bad. His grades are awful, as they always are. But pressures, he has 20 on 155 attempts, and he's up to 6 sacks already. I don't know why. When you look down here, it says 7. 6 or 7, whatever, which is pretty high for halfway through the season, obviously. So they're probably trying to capitalize on that. But again, when you get to the grades, which is the film, as opposed to the stats, which are, lacking context, the grades say he's just as terrible as he's always been. So it seems like potentially the Giants are trying to cash in with a little fool's gold with Ojulari, and I'm happy that we are now a 4-3 team in that I have to assume Gutekunst wouldn't be this stupid. I shouldn't even say it, but I just, there's no way. And then at corner, Jonathan Jones for the Patriots, Tre'Davious White for the Rams, and Avonte Maddox for the Eagles. I don't know which of those we've gone through and haven't. Not going to go through all that again, but those are the ones that they list as possible things. I would doubt it with the Rams, with them coming off a win. Who knows? Maybe they want to keep going. Avonte Maddox, same with the Eagles. Jonathan Jones, maybe. I don't know. Who knows, man? Who freaking knows? Oh, here it is. This is also Yardbarker. Giants reportedly set high asking price for 2 clear trade chips. The two guys being Darius Slayton and Azeez Ojulari. No interest in either of them. And then finally we get to The Athletic here, or New York Times, whatever freaking thing. Diana Rossini wrote sort of a What I'm Hearing article, and what part of it is about the trade deadline. said, lots of sizzle, but ... The NFL trade deadline is less than 2 weeks away. The phone lines are lighting up in front offices all over the NFL. The reality is the sizzle's much better than the steak as we inch closer to the deadline day. Though there has been an uptick in trades in recent years, it hasn't been an earth-shattering increase, but there are more deals now than there used to be. One NFL general manager shared his philosophy about the trade deadline. You can't get caught in the emotion and drama of it. There's a reason these moves are being made. The core of your team is the core of your team, and very rarely does one extra piece change your season. Boy, does that sound like a Packers GM if I ever heard a quote. Good Lord. It's correct, but that is the Packers. Most contending teams are on a mission to upgrade their depth, and in years past, some big names have done just that. The Vikings with TJ Hawkinson, Dolphins Bradley Chubb, 49ers Christian McCaffrey, Bears Montez Sweat, Ravens Roquan, blah, blah, blah. First of all, Cooper Kupp still is sort of being shopped, but it's sounding less and less desirable because the Rams are not willing to negotiate as far as picking up some of his salary. Don't really care. I don't want Cooper Kupp. Nobody in Green Bay does. The Rams just generally are more reluctant to move Kupp at this point because of that win. Makes sense. There was talk from the Chiefs, who are constantly in that market, but they did just acquire Hopkins, which I'm already hearing like, oh, the Chiefs are doing stuff like a real team. It's like, bro, Hopkins, first of all, is a washed-up old dude who hasn't done jack in a long time. Beyond that, he's wide receiver 1 for Pat Mahomes, and the guy racked up 29 yards in his first going there. I don't care. And the week before that, you know what his total was for yards? -2. So, come on. Also, the Bills and Steelers. I've been hearing a lot about the Steelers trying to acquire wide receivers that just keep going to other places. I'm sure they were in on Hopkins, too. There are some unfortunate news for Packer fans. There are a couple players that are considered untouchable, and they're all pass rushers. Jeffrey Simmons of the Titans, Max Crosby for the Raiders, and Myles Garrett for the Browns, meaning as much as we would love to be able to make a trade and as much as it seems like he'd be a good fit, especially Max Crosby, with him being unhappy where he is, the Raiders kind of being a team that's not going to win anything, it seems like a good fit. Apparently, that's just a no-go. It's a non-starter. Don't even call me because I'm not entertaining anything. Pass rushers likely to draw interest, very similar with Jadeveon Clowney and Zadarius Smith. However, there's another name. It's a name that I've been talking about for a while. It's Preston Smith. It's funny that Preston and Zadarius are right next to each other again, but as I said, I don't know that it's impossible, and I think a lot of people would be ticked off if all we did for the trade deadline was get rid of Preston, but I think you do everything that makes the most sense, and I don't know if acquiring is going to make sense. Who knows what, I don't know that anybody would give up a ton, so it might just not be worth anything. If Cam Robinson's worth a 2 years from now 5th round pick, the heck is Preston worth? And then finally, they did talk about the 49ers. She must have had a pretty in-depth discussion with them. Wouldn't normally care, but some of this is interesting to us. First of all, there are internal discussions about acquiring DeForest Buckner and DJ Jones from the Broncos. I don't really care about what they're interested in, but the fact that they're considering targeting these people leads me to believe that there's some potential for them to be available, which means there's potential for us to pick up the phone and freaking go get them for ourselves. He also said Deebo Samuel is not likely available for a trade, and Charvarius Ward, who I don't really know his status right now, obviously, but he may be available due to an expiring contract. That's a cornerback. So again, depending his family situation and everything else, if he's looking to play, something to consider if the 49ers do decide to go in a different direction with Ward. Then just a couple rapid fire things here. I found this hilarious. Not a big fan of the Chiefs, so I figured I'd go ahead and play this. Mike Renner, I don't know if did he leave PFF? Mike Renner, CBS Sports. Yeah, so he's just CBS now. So he's on the old CBS sitting at the table thing. Here's what he had to say, which I just thought was great.
I think Frisco's crazy for saying they're going undefeated. This is one of the fakest undefeated teams right now in the NFL. They're blowing nobody out. 5-1 score wins so far in the season. They ain't going undefeated. They're going to drop one. They could lose to the Broncos this upcoming week. They are a good team. They're not a great team. They're not going undefeated.
Really?
Whoa, you got a hater.
Mike, how many teams are better than the Chiefs right now?
I'm not saying anyone's better than them, but they're not this juggernaut that goes undefeated, right? There's a reason one team did in the past 25 years, and they were blowing teams out left and right. They're doing the Patriots, so it just ain't going to happen.
To be fair, it's also stupid to say they're going to go undefeated because this is one of the worst Chiefs teams we've seen. It's not to say they're bad. They're winning. They're good. They're dangerous. They're scary. All that stuff. They're one of those teams that just finds a way to win, which is great. Pat Mahomes, it's like Mahomes' worst year. Like, there's just a lot that's not going well. They're picking up scraps off the scrap heap, going and getting a bad pass rusher in Uche, and then going and getting a washed-up old wide receiver. This is not a team in its prime making these kinds of moves. This is a team that's trying to sustain a thing that's working, but barely, as things slowly start to fall apart, right? I mean, they lost Tyreek Hill a long time ago, and then they've just been kind of losing pieces, and obviously their tight end is not going to stick around forever. I mean, they are able to maintain as things start to fall apart, largely because their front office is nowhere near as good as the front office that assembled this team. So they are falling apart faster than they are building. But Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid are able to sustain this thing. But for how long, I have no freaking idea. But that is a stupid thing to say that they could go undefeated. And Renner's right. This is the most overrated undefeated team ever. And it's because they're the Chiefs that nobody wants to talk about it. It's also a very weird situation with George Pickens. There was a play in which he caught a touchdown pass. He got 1 foot down and then got the same foot down a second time very clearly, like distinctly, like 1 foot and then same foot again down and out. And I'm kind of torn on whether or not that makes any freaking sense. Like, why does it need to be 2 distinct feet? Like 2 feet. Well, it is 2 feet. It's 1, 2. Why does it have to be 2 different feet? It could be 2 of the same foot. I don't freaking know. So it's kind of stupid, but the only thing, and I just thought of this very shortly before I started the podcast, that, you start going down the rabbit hole of like, what if, and you realize it's just going to cause so many problems, it's better to just leave it the way it is. What about a guy who gets 1 foot down, but it kind of skips? It catches the turf a couple times. It's kind of skipping as it goes across the ground. Does that count? Because do we have to get to the point where we zoom in super close to see if it maybe got a little bit off the ground before it came back on the ground, so we can call that a second tap, so that still counts as 2 feet? As soon as I realized that was probably going to be a thing, I'm out. I understand it seems silly that he was, he caught it, I don't know, a third of the way to the end zone. So, I mean, there's 3 yards, 4 yards between him and the end zone. He gets 1 foot firmly down, and then gets it back up in the air and gets it firmly down again. It's a very weird, unusual thing that I think in this case you could probably say that, yeah, if this is how it went every time, you could maybe change the rule. But we're going to get into some stupid nuance here if we start talking about, every time a guy drags 1 foot down, we're going to see if that foot came up a millimeter before it touched the next, did it stop touching grass for a fraction of a second and then begin touching grass again, which would be 2 toe tats. Like, nah, you know what? We're going to do more harm than good. It's one of those things you look at and go, this rule is stupid. We should change it. And then you realize that that's just going to make everything worse. I don't want to do it. It's a stupid thing. It's a weird thing. But at the same time, when you look at the replay, get your other foot down. I mean, he had the ability to just drop his foot, and he just didn't do it. So I am officially in the I got to get 2 feet down camp. And then finally, this is from a little while ago, but I haven't really mentioned it yet. Ari Mirov on Twitter, this was, a few days ago. Global expansion is a massive priority for the NFL. We knew that already, but we just didn't know exactly the direction. It says, and the league has even discussed going to places like the UAE and Australia. It's weird because I've been very much in favor of this for a long time, but part of me is starting to change my thoughts on this. There is something kind of cool about this being an American sport, number one. These are American teams playing on American turf, whatever. It's interesting to be like, once in a while we'll go here and there. Now it's starting to feel like a traveling circus. Like, let's pack up all these football players and send them out to the UAE to go entertain those people. And then we'll send them out to Ireland to entertain them. And then we'll send them out to here, and we'll shoot them out to Australia, just as these little gimmicks, There's a part of me that thinks, if we were to take this really seriously and actually care about the sport and the players and the teams, as a stupid illustration, as I like to do, it's kind of like, first of all, if somebody gave you some pizza dough And it's like, I want my pizza to be bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so, it's like, I want the crust to be bigger because then you get more crust. And it's like, well, you're not getting more crust. You're stretching it, but you're also thinning it as you stretch it. You're giving it the appearance of being bigger, but you're kind of hollowing out the crust as you do it. And if you continue to do that, there's going to be an even bigger problem where it's going to tear and have holes in it. And it's not even going to work as a pizza because you're going to have sauce and everything else just falling out of the bottom because there's holes and the crust cannot be sustained. And it's just, you ruined it, basically, at the expense of making it appear bigger and spreading it out further. You've hollowed it out to the point where you've just ruined the entire pizza. So I think it's worth exploring how can we get more of a global audience and kind of work these things out. But I don't want this to become a traveling circus. I don't think it's fair to the players. I don't think it's fair to the just identity of the game, Is this a very serious product where people, if you want to come see it, great, come. It's a great thing. People fly from all over the world to come watch it, and you should too. Or is this just this little gimmicky thing that we're just going to pack up these guys and send them all over and then go collect paychecks? I mean, I'm sure the UAE will pay a great price for that, and they'll put you up in great amenities and in a great arena and all that stuff. And like everything else, it's cool to be able to bring it to fans, however many UAE fans there are, I don't know. I mean, Brazil, obviously massive. UK is massive. UAE, I don't know. I don't remember ever seeing any of that pop up on my my downloads, but there's probably a couple. That just seems like, hey, let's go to the rich oil countries. Like, what are we doing? See if we can get some of that Saudi money, you know what I mean? Hang out at the Burj Khalifa, you know what I mean? I don't know. Especially considering my suspicions of the NFL as it is, as an entity that couldn't give a crap about the NFL as it is, the integrity of the game. They just cared about collecting paychecks. It just makes me less confident that they actually know what they're doing and are going to do it in a way that's responsible and protects the integrity of the game, as opposed to literally, like I said, just packaging them up players and selling them out to other countries to collect paychecks. That's not my favorite. It's not my favorite thing. All right, let's take our final break. We'll be back and make fun of some people. All right, we'll be right back. All right, so first of all, I want to bring this up because it's funny. I think I did already, but I just, in case I didn't, just adds to the hilarity of it all. This was October 26th, so this is prior to the game for the Jets on Sunday. Deal is now done. Official Pro Bowl edge rusher Hassan Reddick signed an adjusted one-year deal this morning with the New York Jets. Per Drew Rosenhaus and Ryan Matha, Reddick will make his Jets debut Sunday in New England. Bro, they gave up a lot and looked like idiots to get this pass rusher. And they gave up a ton to get Devontae. And they gave up a ton to get Rodgers. And they invested in all these pieces. And you can't beat the worst team in football with it? I mean, give me an example of something equally embarrassing. You talk about the dream team all you want, where they went out and got a couple corners. You went out and got Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. It's not the same thing. Then it's just been a snowball, similar to the Bears. I mean, people are just piling on the Jets right now. Again, I think they're just making up for lost time because they spent so much time praising the Jets and talking about how great they're going to be. And then when reality smacked them in the mouth, they're like, we got a lot to talk about. Specifically, Jeff Howe of The Athletic, NFL quarterback stock report week 9, why the Aaron Rodgers Jets experiment has failed, which is an interesting and sort of sad way of phrasing it, where essentially it's over. It's over. And look, again, I don't feel bad for a lot of reasons. Let me add another one. These guys need to stop doing this to their own legacies. At some point, these guys who think that they're the God's gift to whatever sport they're in or whatever industry they're in need to learn to go out on top. The other reason why is because, as we learned from Brett Favre, things like this will tarnish your legacy. Now, Brett Favre had a few other things that didn't help his legacy necessarily. He had some faux pas over there while he was with the Jets. And then, of course, there were things after he left football. But even today, like we talked about, where Jordan Love looks just like Brett Favre throwing all those picks, because that's how he ended his career. Yeah, he had relatively high in the 90s, but not really. But down the stretch, yeah, he was throwing Way too many interceptions. And when he was with the Vikings, way too many interceptions. It very much, to some degree, tarnished his legacy. Aaron Rodgers won MVP in 2021. Now he's got 2022 working against him, 2023 to some degree working against him, 2024 is now massively working against him. What's he going to do next year? You think he's going to go out on the bottom, or is he going to continue to fight? And then what is your plan? We're going to roll it back with Devontae, and we'll be better off because now now we know some stuff. He's going to have next year working against him too. Every year he sticks with this is just going to keep getting worse. It starts off as the New York Jets fall to 2-6. It's looking more and more like the Aaron Rodgers experiment is never going to meet expectations. Perhaps the expectations were never realistic. Rodgers is coming off a torn Achilles, and he's also dealt with knee, ankle, and hamstring injuries this season. As such, he's on pace for one of the worst seasons of his career, and he might lose double-digit starts for the first time since 2008 when he took over for Brett Favre. So has it been due to bad injury luck, skill deterioration, organizational issues, or a little bit of everything? Quote, Rodgers is trying to play as if he's 10 years younger, and he's not close to the same player, a defensive coach, granted anonymity so he could speak freely, told The Athletic. He can still throw in a clean pocket with the best of the best, but his mobility is not the same. He's jumpy, and he misses some throws I've never seen him miss. This is a defensive coach. So these are guys who your job is to watch guys like Aaron Rodgers closely. Then there's a chart here where they have quarterbacks ranked. I have no idea what this is based on, but Aaron Rodgers is ranked 19th. And I'll be honest, that's generous. I don't think I've seen him that high on very many lists. A couple of coaches who have studied Rodgers said his footwork has been out of whack. He's made some mistakes that would have been out of character for his time in Green Bay, notably much of his performance in London against Minnesota and that late first-half interception against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He needs the run game, play action, screen game more than ever, but that's not what he wants, the coach added. Again, he can't get out of his own way. His play is deteriorating. He can't rely on himself being the elite alpha of the team and needs to learn to play within a system that is well-rounded, but he refuses. This is me talking. Back to the quote. He wants to play that he's most comfortable, and he doesn't have the offensive line or skill group to play that way. Getting Devontae Adams will help. There's always a chance he gets a shot. I'll never underestimate his ability as long as he's still playing the game. He's always turned it up when people have doubted him the most. Goes on to talk more and more about some of the bad stats, and then it says this, Rodgers' skill erosion is real, an executive said. Not being able to extend plays with his feet puts a lot of pressure on the offensive line to firm up the middle and the playmakers to get open quicker. I won't be surprised if you see more of a screen game being put on their offense. They really need to ride Breece Hall more as a runner and pass catcher out of the backfield. In other words, you're going to try to tell Rodgers in his offense, we need to throw less and run more, and I need you to throw to your checkdowns. Yeah. Okay. Another quote, Rodgers has been so good for so long, it's almost like people believed he was immune from the effects of tearing his Achilles at 40 years old, another executive said. That's a difficult injury for a young player. To be 40 and to play at that level, that's really hard, and they can't protect him. At his age, Aaron is coming off a career-ending injury in most sports. To not have the footwork, quickness, and mobility, that's fine. We would expect that. But for some reason, the expectation is he should be looking like the MVP from 2021. That's not living in reality. He's probably doing better than most 40-year-olds with that injury. It's almost unfair to him to ask him to be the driver of that team in those circumstances, but there's a double-edged sword that maybe he doesn't realize he's not the same Aaron he was in 2021. So there's that. And then, to make things even better, the article continues to say Patrick Mahomes is on pace for the worst statistical season of his career. I'm not going to bother to read the rest because that's the best line in the whole article. Scroll down to the next section. Biggest movers. It says there's been a lot of stability in the top 5 as of late, but Jared Goff, Jordan Love, and Brock Purdy have been knocking on the door. Again, no need to elaborate. Probably won't have time to get to the Bears, so we'll just keep riding with this. This is from Sports Illustrated, Week 8 NFL takeaways inside the Jaden Daniels Hail Mary. But Yardbarker's got a nice little summary as long as piecing it together with a couple others, so I'm going to go with that. There was a piece published early Monday morning. NFL insider Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated shared that New York Jets owner Woody Johnson firing head coach Robert Saleh earlier in the month when the team was 2-3, quote-unquote, confused New York players who feared Losing Saleh would stretch the staff thin and hurt a defense that was the strength of the team. Wow. Awfully insightful from those players. Later on, Monday morning, ESPN's Bill Barnwell explained how the Jets' defense failed to play at a top-tier level across the past 3 games. New York lost, the last 3 games New York lost, with defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich serving as the club's interim head coach. Quote, through the first 5 games of the season, Barnwell wrote about the Jets, they were productive on the defensive side of the ball, ranking 6th in EPA per play and 4th in points allowed per drive. In the 3 games since the coaching change, they have fallen to last in EPA per play and 26th in points allowed per drive. Wow, I guess Robert Saleh was the architect of that defense. They've failed to force a single turnover and are allowing teams to convert nearly 77% of their series into another first down or touchdown. Before Saleh's departure, that figure was below 64%, which was the 5th best mark. That is shocking. There is nothing more just perfectly obvious than looking at a top 5 defense fall to a bottom 5 defense exactly at the time that you fire your head coach, who is the defensive-minded head coach that built the defense. Go figure. New York defense was a shell of its best days under Saleh over the last 2 games. In the 37-15 loss to Pittsburgh on October 20th, quarterback Russell Wilson passed for 264 yards and 2 touchdowns and no interceptions versus the Jets after he missed Pittsburgh's first 6 contests, which is a hilariously shocking statistic for a top 5 defense, to have a bad quarterback who's been out for like a year playing for a brand new team come in and just, do really well. On Sunday, the New England Patriots team responsible for arguably the league's largest lack of offensive talent had to turn to journeyman signal caller Jacoby Brissett to replace injured rookie Drake May, but nevertheless completed 2 fourth-quarter scoring drives against a Jets defense that had star pass rusher Hassan Reddick making his season debut. If the defense isn't great, Barnwell concluded about the Jets, there's no hope of turning things around. The level of incompetence is unbelievable. It's unfreaking believable. I mean, if you had just not fired your head coach, maybe there'd be a chance. Maybe. Yeah, all the stuff we just talked about is true. And Rodgers is not the guy that he was, and he doesn't know that he's not the guy, so he's having a hard time just leaning into the strength of the team and allowing the coaches to do their job to build an offense that makes the most sense given the situation. All that's true. And Devontae's not necessarily the guy that he used to be. That's true. But my Lord, Aaron Rodgers is still a talented thrower of the football. Devontae is still a really good wide receiver. Garrett Wilson is still a really good receiver. They have 2 really talented running backs at least. They had a top 5 defense. My frickin' Lord, there is no excuse for this team not being another 6-2 team like a bunch of others, including the Packers, clearly on their way to a playoff season, and people talking about them as potential Super Bowl champions. There's no reason for it, except for you fired the head coach and now your defense is one of the worst in football. And you did it because you thought it would create a spark? Are you freaking brain damaged? I swear, the owner of that team, Woody, walking around with his chain. I don't know, man. I don't know. I just don't freaking know. I can't definitively say this is the dumbest organization in football because, believe it or not, it's a tight race, but it's tough. With that, why don't we go ahead and end with this? This is from Locked On Jets. John is his name, I think.
The Jets in 2024, they go down as like an all-time bust team. They go down with like the dream team the Eagles had in 2011.
It's worse.
They go back with the early Dan Snyder team in Washington when they signed Deion Sanders and Bruce Smith. You want to go to other sports, the Lakers in 2012 and 2013, they had Kobe Bryant and Pau Gasol, and they traded for Steve Nash and Dwight Howard. And the team that I compared the Jets with last week, the 1992 New York Mets, who had a book written about them, the worst team money could buy, a Mets team that had a lot of stars on it and finished in 5th place in a 6-team division. And a week ago, after the Jets were blown out by the Pittsburgh Steelers, I said the Jets were football's version of the worst team money could buy. But I got to be honest with you. I think after losing to the Patriots, They're worse than the worst team money could buy. It's tough to believe how bad this team is right now. They just lost to maybe the least talented team in the NFL.
It is true, though. I mean, I can't speak to the baseball or basketball analogies necessarily other than knowing the names. I couldn't tell you much about that. But from a football context, it's one thing, again, you bring up the Eagles and you look at what they did. Aaron Rodgers trumps all of it. Aaron Rodgers trumps all of it. I mean, it's it's unbelievable. And then you add in Devontae, and I don't know how much hope you had in bringing in all these other guys like Lazard or Randall Cobb or whoever was brought in to appease Rodgers. Because not only did you pay for a Hall of Fame quarterback and everything that comes with it, but look how bad they are. It's not like, oh, shucks, we missed the playoffs. It's not even, oh, shucks, we fell to sub 500. They are on track to rank 32nd out of 32 teams. It feels impossible that that's how it's going to end up because I read off the names even in my own head, as much as I make fun of people for being like, oh, yeah, you thought it was good because Rodgers won MVPs a long time ago. I can't even get it out of my own head. There's no way Rodgers and Devontae and Garrett Wilson can't be better than teams like the Patriots and the Steelers. Yet here we are. By the way, the comments are hilarious. 2 out of the 3 anyways. We got one that says, I blame the kicker, which, oh my Lord. You have all this talent and you lose to the worst team in football and fall to 2-6, and your comment is, I blame the kicker? Boy, are you missing the big picture here. And then Andrew says, thousands of Packer fans saying, we warned you. Look, I'll take all the victory laps I can get. I never saw it being this bad. Let me rephrase that in an even more flattering way. I didn't realize how right I was. Anyways, we got more stuff to get through. I got a bunch of Bears stuff queued up. Obviously, I wanted to do the Jets first because save the best for last. But I'm not going to try to cram it in, 10 minutes or something. So we will save that probably for tomorrow. Who knows what's going to come up. But we got some Bears stuff. Some other things that I've been wanting to touch on, but it's not critical, so I keep pushing it back, but we'll see. The power rankings I wanted to talk about last week, I didn't get to it. This week, it's even better, so maybe we'll get to that. A lot of love being shown for some Packers players, specifically Edger and Cooper, which gets you excited. Sometimes, for me anyways, you know how I get. I struggle to believe that things are actually real, and then when you hear people saying, no, you don't understand, this guy's going to be one of the all-time greats. Maybe not all-time, but he's going to be the next great NFL linebacker. It kind of makes you think, oh man, what if, But anyways, I'm going to go. You guys have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you tonight, tomorrow, whatever. Have a good one. Bye-bye.